Thank you so much for coming on and doing
Oh,
this.
thank you for doing this for us. You're so
Oh,
great at all this
please.
stuff.
No,
I
you're
always love.
great.
Oh,
I loved reading about you.
thank
I just want
you.
to give a quick info. Feliza, you are a licensed veterinary technician with 10 years of experience in level 1 trauma and specialty hospitals. And in 2017, you were honored with the Animal Medical Center's Licensed Veterinary Technician of the Year Award, which is amazing.
Yes.
I read this quote um, that you had talked about that was sort of what led you into the work that you do, but you said that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, which is a quote by Gandhi.
Mhm.
You said that there's nothing more humbling than the ability to provide one's expertise to a community that would never be able to afford it otherwise. And that's what led you to work with Veterinarians International, which I
It's
think
true.
is wonderful. And do you
Mhm.
want to tell me a bit about that?
Well, I landed my dream job at the AMC, the Animal Medical Center, in the emergency and critical care department, and I learned so much through all my mentors, technicians, veterinarians, and I reached a point in my career where I just felt like I needed to do more. I had all this knowledge and all this experience, and I love treating our patients. So I was like, there's got to be something I can do to just contribute more to veterinary medicine, right? So a good friend of mine, Amy Cantor, knows Scarlett. She's a surgeon, and she posted on Facebook, any technicians or veterinarians interested in going to a campaign in Guatemala? And I just messaged her. I'm like, me, maybe. And so that's how I met Scarlett. We talked for like an hour about her goals and visions. And that's kind of how it started. And I was just like super nervous because I'd never done anything like this before. And at the same time, I felt very prepared. I was like, this is what I've been
Yeah,
training for all this
right,
time, to be able
right.
to just adapt and contribute.
Yeah, it's a real gift that you have, and being able to share that globally is just, it's extraordinary. But tell me what you do in Guatemala and Chile. You're part of the
Well,
organization in Chile also. So what's going on here?
so my primary role now is to be the support for all of our technicians. So we have technicians from all over the world. I've worked with technicians from Chile, Australia, um, technicians in Guatemala, Canada. Just everyone just comes from different walks of life, different type of experience in vet med. So my primary role is to guide them and make them feel supported during these campaigns, because it's very, very on the field kind of anesthesia. There aren't any gadgets, there aren't any anesthetic monitoring machines. It's really your training, what you've learned in school, what you've learned, in the hospital, and yourself. You're between the patient, and the outcome. So my goal is to make sure that they're comfortable with that, make sure the flow of the campaign is going smoothly, and that we're accomplishing what we need to do, spay neuters. And then luckily we're so efficient that once we're done with our procedures, I get to kind of volunteer and help with the exams, which is very rewarding, because I get to talk to the people.
In the
I'm not
community.
just doing anesthesia. And, yeah.
Right. And you're doing mostly spay, neuters, and
Mm-hmm.
rabies vax. Can
Exactly.
you tell me, why is it so important to have these three main things in places like Chile or Guatemala?
Well, population control and disease control. So in Todos Santos, they started the campaign because rabies was a big problem.
Yeah.
Children were getting
It's
bit.
wild for us to think about, especially in the United States, how important it is for rabies vax. I mean, all of our dogs, it's such a common vaccine here. My dog can't board a plane without a rabies vaccine.
Exactly.
And you kind of take that for granted, and you don't realize the serious effects of something like rabies, which is still really common in other parts of the world. Could you tell me what is at risk when not vaccinating animals for rabies, and what happens to children and adults in the community?
Well, there's no cure for rabies, right? And for these communities that don't have medical access for themselves, if they're at risk for something that's pretty certain death, like rabies, it you can eliminate populations and communities. I mean, it's something that's just so easily fixed, by a vaccine.
It's
So
so
that's
easily
why.
fixed. And how much is a rabies vaccine cost?
Well, here in the US, I think it's about $40.
Yeah. And how much is it in Chile or Guatemala?
Um, I'm not really sure. I think that
Okay.
we just provide this care for free for
We do
them.
provide it for free, but I just, the actual cost of doing something like this, I remember reading that it was
I'm sure it's dollars.
incredibly low. And that was my point, is it's such
Yeah.
an easy solvable fix.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, oh, wow, this seems like a no-brainer. The fact that this isn't happening more common, even within the own governments in the area, like why it's not so strictly enforced, because it's not just bites from animals that sort of transmit the disease. It's kids playing in soil that could become
Mm-hmm.
infected through rabies. And that's why it's so easily spread. That's what like kind of blew my mind reading about.
Exactly. And even population control, like one
Yeah,
female dog could give birth to 12 to 13 puppies. And there's so many other diseases as well, like distemper, parvo,
right.
and then those puppies can create 13 more puppies. It's just like this endless cycle. And, these communities I've interacted with, they keep them all, they care for them all. And if they're, just have enough to feed themselves, it just becomes harder and harder, because what I've seen through these communities, even though that they're just getting by, they're still compassionate toward their pets, and they will do anything, to help them and nurture them. And, you know, staying in neuter is a very easy solution to kind of lessen that burden.
And going back to the community involvement and how prideful people are and compassionate they are for their animals, I think what you guys are providing there is obviously a service, but also education. And I think them understanding the importance of spay and neuter and vaccines is something that they quite literally pass on to generations, and you start to realize how important it is. So you're sharing the knowledge of something like this because these people are so ready, willing, and able to participate in these programs. They're just not given the opportunity to. That's
Exactly.
what I really love so much. It's like, but that's what you guys are doing.
Exactly. And a lot of the kids that are involved with the campaign, we've seen them grow throughout the years. And, by the last year that I was there, these kids were just promoting for us. They're like, you need to spay neuter,
Yeah.
vaccinate. And it was just, and they knew why, which was like, you know, so impressive to me. It's just heartwarming. Like they knew why that these vaccines were important. They knew why husbandry was important, enrichment for their pets. They just, I'm sure they always knew, but they didn't have the resources or the knowledge to just understand really why these things are needed for their animals.
Yeah. Never ever overestimate or underestimate the how important it is for children to get involved with these programs, because they're the ones that really absorb it, and they're the ones that kind of just implement the change going forward when they realize how important it is and how necessary it is, and how to navigate the system in order to get it, like how to find resources and people like you to help them with their animals, and maybe even become veterinarians themselves, which I think is really, that's obviously must be really gratifying for you.
It is. I'm always grateful to Scarlett, because when I went my first year to this campaign, I just thought, all right, here to do anesthesia, here to get as many spays and neuters done, like typical workday kind of thing.
Right.
And when we got there, the community, that's what really got me. I'm like, yes, that's right. We forget the human animal bond. Like nothing happens unless you communicate with owners and hear their concerns. I was just blown away by the community, the children. I was reminded, all right, that was me growing up. Like I was the one that wanted to know what was best for my pets, and like didn't necessarily have all the resources or knew where to go. And it just really was heartwarming, overwhelming. It was just a beautiful thing to be a part of. And this is why I enjoy working with Scarlett and collaborating with all the different organizations. We really have to get the human animal bond up front and center, give people the opportunity to do the best for their pet.
I think that's beautiful. I think the work that you're doing is extraordinary, and I think that's so perfectly said. Thank you so much for participating in this, and thank you for all of the work that you do, and I hope to travel with you soon and be a part of this and experience it too, because it sounds like really profound. It sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming on and being a part of this. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wanted to shout out little Phoenix.
Oh, Phoenix. Oh, I heard that you actually play music for your animals. Is this true? Could you please
They
tell me?
love it. Yeah,
I I have to
I think
say,
during pandemic, we're all kind of home and travel withheld and all these things. And I played the guitar 10 years ago, and I just kind of lost it. And I was like, perfect opportunity just to refresh and remind myself, because I'm super into music as well. And we've just been jamming out in the apartment.
I love
And
it.
he loves it.
By the way, dogs have had an extraordinary 2020. I think dogs have had the best year ever with everyone home and listening to
Yeah.
live music, right? Like,
Yeah, I did it. I held out long enough, and I said, you know what, Agnes is the three-legged cat that's roaming around. Like, it's time for a puppy.
oh, it's
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful dog. Oh, how old?
he's a good guy. He's 3 months old.
Oh my God. So you just got him. That's so
I
crazy.
did, yeah. He was very sick, and he showed up to my hospital, and the
Oh,
client just couldn't deal with
yeah,
him,
yeah.
take care of him. So I said, all right. And it was a rough, first 2 weeks, because he was hypoglycemic, and I was just up every 3 hours feeding him while working ICU shifts.
Oh my God.
But we did it. He's doing great now.
Well,
So
if anyone's up for the job, you are up
yeah,
for the job.
yeah.
I also got a pandemic pup
Oh, you did?
during COVID. Yeah, during quarantine, I should say. She's around here
Okay, good.
somewhere. So we have
Oh,
two now also, which is great. Oh,
I feel like I see her in your stories a lot.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
around. She's
Well,
fantastic.
it's
Totally made this year better. Like as hard as it was, their companionship, like really, I mean, I can't understate that enough. Like really got me through like some times that were like literally
Mhm.
lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
cute animal connection.
exactly. Well, it's lovely meeting you. Thank you
Love.
again
Thank
for
you
making
so
this
much
super
for doing
easy.
it. You're amazing.